Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I continue bringing you the story of Tusan. In the previous episode, we followed the moment when Tusan lifted the first square sticky rice cakes that she and Hai had made together. Steam rose thickly in the small kitchen, the scent of dong leaves blending with the gentle fragrance of freshly harvested rice, wrapping the space in the feeling of Tet drawing near. In that simple moment, amid soft laughter and warm glances, Hai quietly promised to take her back to his hometown to meet his relatives. Not just as a New Year visit, but as an important step that showed how serious he was about their relationship. The joy came unexpectedly, but along with it crept a quiet sense of nervousness. Tusan understood that meeting the family was not merely about greeting a few relatives. It meant stepping into a world that had existed long before she appeared. A world filled with memories, judgments, and stories yet untold. Still, she believed that as long as Hai's hand remained firmly holding hers, she would have enough calmness to face everything. And so, the journey back to his hometown began. The car rolled slowly out of the city, leaving behind towering buildings and hurried crowds. The farther they traveled, the gentler the scenery became. The village road leading into Hai's hometown still carried its rustic charm. Rows of bamboo whispering in the wind, branches weaving together to cast dappled shadows across the path. Old tiled roof houses appeared behind hibiscus fences, thin streams of kitchen smoke rising into the early New Year air, painting a peaceful rhythm of countryside life. A small river flowed quietly through the village, its surface reflecting the soft sunlight of early spring, calm and contemplative. This was where Hai had grown up, where he once ran barefoot along dirt roads after school, where memories were marked by days that were far from easy, when his mother carried all responsibilities alone after his father passed away. Hai's childhood was not wrapped in abundance. It was made of afternoons watching his mother toil quietly by the house, her thin hands never giving up. It was the memory of her eyes falling silent under the weight of whispered gossip. And it was here that he learned to endure pain in silence, to grow strong enough to shield the woman who had given her entire youth for him. Back then, not all relatives reached out to help. Some glanced briefly and turned away, treating it as a private matter of a small family. Some kept their distance, afraid of being involved. And some even criticized his single mother with sharp words like blades. She couldn't keep her husband. Those words, though spoken casually, left deep marks in the heart of a growing child. Hai listened without arguing, without resentment, simply remembering. He understood that the way to change how people saw him was not through excuses, but through the results of a long journey ahead. Time passed. The difficult years slowly faded into the background. Hai grew up, left the small village, and built his career through determination and ability. When he became a CEO, confidently leading his work and earning a respected position in society, the gazes around him began to shift. Those who had once been indifferent became warmer. Questions about his life appeared more often. Pride replaced silence. "That's my nephew." To outsiders, such change might seem natural. But to Hai, it was proof of a long journey. A journey of perseverance, resilience, and a silent promise he once made to himself, that his mother would never have to bow her head again. Tusan did not know the full story of that past. She had never heard every detail of the days Hai grew up under the weight of judgment. She only sensed something in his eyes as the car turned onto the village road. A look both calm and quietly reflective. She gently held Ivy's hand, adjusting the little girl's coat. Ivy pressed her face to the window, excited by the colorful yet unfamiliar Tet scenery. Her innocent laughter filled the car, light and carefree, easing some of the silent tension in the adults' hearts. As for Tusan, she took a deep breath. Walking into the New Year family gathering, she carried more than one emotion in her heart. There was hope that she would be welcomed. There was worry that her past, her circumstances, and the fact that she already had Ivy might cause hesitation. But above all, she carried faith. Faith that her love with Hai was sincere enough to overcome scrutinizing looks, strong enough to stand before any question. The gate to the house gradually appeared ahead. Laughter echoed from inside, blending with the scent of incense and traditional New Year sweets. Tusan squeezed Hai's hand once more, reminding herself that she was not alone in this moment. And as her first step touched the courtyard of his childhood home, a new chapter in their story quietly began, continuing from the steaming pot of sticky rice cakes, leading them closer to a deeper bond between two families, between past and present, between trials and hope. At first, everything seemed to go quite smoothly. New Year greetings flowed politely across the sunlit courtyard. The adults raised their teacups. Children ran back and forth laughing cheerfully. Tusan smiled gently in response to each inquiry, doing her best to keep her voice steady. The probing glances were still there, but restrained, hidden behind the familiar courtesy of the first days of spring. She told herself that perhaps everything would pass peacefully, until a relative casually asked about Ivy. "Is she your child together?" The question was spoken naturally, yet it landed on the feast like a small stone disturbing still water. The atmosphere paused for just a brief second, short, but enough for the sensitive to notice. The surrounding chatter seemed to slow, a few chopsticks hovering midair. Hai slightly turned his head, about to answer, when faint whispers began somewhere nearby. At first, they were small murmurs passed from one person to another. Then scattered pieces of information quietly formed a clearer truth around the crowded table. Ivy was Tusan's daughter from a previous relationship. She had once been a single mother. She had gone through difficult times. The truth was never loudly announced, yet it spread faster than any whisper. The looks began to change. They were the same faces as before, but the expressions were no longer the same. Some gazed at her a little longer, as if weighing something. Some curled their lips slightly, smiles that were hard to read, whether polite or suggestive. Words that sounded casual were clear enough for her to hear. "A CEO marrying a woman who already has a child? Our family doesn't lack more suitable matches. I heard she used to be quite poor." None of the comments were shouted, yet they were loud enough to slip into her ears. No one looked directly at Tusan while speaking, but neither did they truly lower their voices. The words lingered in the air, deliberately audible, while still giving the speakers an escape, as if they were merely having a private conversation. An aunt from the maternal side, who had been smiling warmly moments earlier, gently set her teacup down and spoke in a soft voice, each word carrying its own weight. "I was actually thinking of introducing Hai to my niece on our side. She's gentle, from a respectable family. A successful man should choose someone well-matched." She did not mention Tusan's name, but everyone understood who the remark was aimed at. The air around the table thickened. Several eyes glanced toward her, waiting for a reaction. The words were like tiny needles, not sharp enough to draw blood immediately, yet enough to sting little by little. They left no visible wound, but caused a dull ache beneath the surface. Tusan felt the shift clearly. She lowered her gaze to Ivy's small hand clasped in hers. The child's hand was warm and soft, squeezing lightly, unaware of what was unfolding around her. That simple squeeze helped Tusan steady herself. She did not react. She did not argue. She did not explain. All the words rising within her were swallowed back down. She understood that one uncontrolled response could turn a New Year gathering into tension. She understood that Hai stood between two sides, his family on one side, the woman he chose on the other. She did not want to become the reason he felt torn in front of his relatives, so she chose silence. But that silence was not because she had nothing to say. It was the silence of someone who had endured too many storms to count, who understood that sometimes the strongest reaction is to hold firmly onto one's composure. She had faced pitying glances before. She had heard whispers behind her back while raising her child alone. Today's words were not the first she had ever heard. The only difference was that this time, they were spoken in front of the man she loved. A faint tremor flickered briefly in her eyes, then quickly disappeared behind a fragile smile. She gently adjusted Ivy's hair, as if all her attention were focused solely on her daughter. She told herself she could endure a little more. As long as Hai did not feel embarrassed. As long as this meeting did not turn into an argument. The conversations continued, but no longer as naturally as before. The cheerful New Year wishes had quietly given way to subtle scrutiny. The feast remained abundant, yet some of its warmth had faded. Amid all the voices, Tusan sat still, quietly, just as she had stepped into this house, carrying both hope and worry. And within that silence, another trial for her and Hai silently took shape, continuing from the moment they had crossed the village gate together on that early spring morning. But Hai had noticed. He didn't need to hear every whispered word to understand what was happening. One look at Tusan was enough. Her eyes still tried to remain calm, still lowered as she carefully adjusted Ivy's sleeve, but beneath that composure lay a thin veil of mist she could not completely hide. Having been by her side long enough, Hai recognized even the smallest shift in her emotions. He saw the hurt she was trying to conceal. He saw the unusual silence in her place within what was meant to be a joyful New Year gathering. He saw Ivy inch a little closer to her mother when the murmurs brushed past the child's ears. That small movement alone made his heart sink. Throughout his years growing up, Hai had grown used to judgmental stares. He had endured them quietly so his mother would not suffer more. He had chosen to move forward rather than turn back to argue. But today, when those words were directed at the woman he loved and the little girl holding her hand, he understood that silence would no longer be generosity. And so, he did not remain silent. In the crowded house beside a feast not yet cleared away, Hai slowly stood up. Not abruptly, not angrily, just enough for every gaze to naturally turn toward him. The already subdued atmosphere fell even quieter. He looked around the room once before speaking. I want to make one thing clear. His voice was calm but firm. Not raised, not harsh, yet each word carried clearly through the still air. I chose Tusan not because of her circumstances. I chose her because she is the woman I love and respect. The entire room fell silent. No more chopsticks clinking. No more scattered laughter. Only attention fixed on the man standing in the familiar house of his childhood, yet speaking with a resolve they had rarely seen before. Hai continued. When my father left, my mother raised me on her own. Back then, how many relatives truly stepped in to help? The question held no accusation in tone, yet several heads lowered slightly. It was not new information. Everyone knew. It had simply never been spoken so directly at a family gathering. But now, when I've achieved a little success, people talk about being worthy. He emphasized the word lightly, not sarcastically, not bitterly, simply placing it before them as something that deserved honest reflection. His voice remained steady, each word deliberate. Tusan was once a single mother. But that is not something to be ashamed of. His eyes turned toward her. She still sat there, holding Ivy's hand, as if she could hardly believe he was saying all of this in front of everyone. She is strong. She sacrifices. She loves her child wholeheartedly. To me, that is what deserves respect. It was not a defense. It was not a plea for approval. It was a declaration. He then stepped closer to Tusan, reaching for her hand in full view of everyone. He held it, not only to reassure her, but as a clear statement of where she stood in his life. Ivy is my daughter too. The words rang out without hesitation. And anyone who cannot respect them does not need to respect me either. The air grew heavy. The silence was no longer awkward. It was the silence of people confronted with something they could not ignore. No more whispers. No more veiled remarks. Tusan felt how warm and steady Hai's hand was around hers. For the first time since stepping into this house, she lifted her head. Her eyes no longer avoided anyone's gaze. Ivy stopped shrinking back and looked at Hai with innocent but unwavering trust. Inside the house that held so many old memories, a quiet shift was taking place. There were no immediate apologies, no open agreement yet. But a boundary had been drawn. A stance had been made clear. And in that moment, within the heavy yet honest atmosphere, Tusan understood she was no longer alone in this family. The challenges were still there. The stairs might not change overnight. But at least now, she knew the man beside her had chosen to stand with her. Not in silence, but with the same honesty and steadfastness that had carried them through every step of their journey so far. That afternoon, while the atmosphere in the house still felt heavy after Hai's honest words, he decided to take Tusan and Ivy away from the gathering earlier than planned. There was no need for long explanations. Just a small nod to a few elders, a brief farewell, and he gently held the hands of both mother and daughter as they stepped out through the gate. He did not want them to endure another judging glance. He did not want Ivy to hear more whispers, words she was not old enough to understand, yet sensitive enough to feel. And he certainly did not want Tusan to keep smiling while her heart struggled to remain steady. The car rolled away from the road leading to his relative's house, leaving behind the once cheerful sounds that no longer felt whole. Inside the vehicle, the silence was thicker than usual. Ivy sat in the back, hugging her small teddy bear, her young eyes carrying a trace of unspoken thought. Beside Hai, Tusan quietly gazed out the window, where rows of bamboo reappeared, rustling gently in the late afternoon breeze. Hai did not drive them straight home. Instead, he steered slowly through the familiar roads of his childhood. The dirt path from years ago had been paved with concrete, but on both sides stretched fields of green under the golden light of dusk. He pointed into the distance. "That's where I used to fly kites. Every summer afternoon, my friends and I would run across the fields." Ivy followed his gesture with curious eyes that gradually brightened. She asked innocent questions, and for the first time since leaving the gathering, soft laughter filled the car. He continued driving to the small riverside where he and his mother once sat during hot summer evenings. The water shimmered under the fading sunlight, and a cool breeze drifted across the surface. He opened the car door and let the two of them step out. "Whenever we were tired, Mom and I would come here. She would tell stories and I would splash in the water." His voice was not sorrowful, only quieter. Tusan stood beside him listening. She could imagine the young Hai from years ago, thin but resilient, sitting next to a mother who silently carried the weight of everything. Then he brought them to the small market where his mother once sold goods to support his education. The stalls were still packed beneath old tin roofs, voices of buyers and sellers blending with the scent of fresh vegetables, fish, and sweets, a fragrance uniquely belonging to his hometown. "My mom used to sit in that corner," he said softly, not to complain, not to reopen wounds, simply to let Tusan understand more clearly the man he had become, and what had shaped him. Later, as the three of them sat by the edge of a field watching the sun slowly descend, Hai finally spoke. "I'm sorry you had to hear those words." His voice was low and sincere. Not an apology for speaking the truth earlier, but for knowing how it must have felt for her to stand under doubtful stares. Tusan shook her head. Her eyes were slightly red, yet her smile remained gentle and understanding. "I was just afraid of putting you in a difficult position." The words were soft, like the evening wind, yet heavy with meaning. She did not fear for herself. What troubled her most was Hai standing between his family and the woman he had chosen. Hai did not answer immediately. He stepped closer and wrapped his arms around both mother and daughter. It was not a hurried or dramatic embrace, just firm enough for them to feel his protection and commitment. "My family is the two of you." Nothing more needed to be said. There was no need to revisit what had happened earlier in that house. That one sentence was enough to ease part of the pain they had endured. At that moment, the evening breeze swept across the fields, carrying the scent of young rice and a deep, honest peace. The sun slipped behind the bamboo line, leaving a soft orange glow across the sky. Ivy looked up at Hai, then at her mother, her small eyes shining with a quiet but certain sense of safety. Hai had not taken them out simply to sightsee. He was mending. He was affirming. He was loving in the clearest way he knew how. By guiding Tusan through the corners of his memories, he was telling her that she was not an outsider. She belonged to his journey from the past to the present and into all the years ahead. But life never pauses at a single peaceful moment. After his firm stand today, how would his relationship with the relatives change? Would his straightforward words create a distance difficult to mend, or make them reflect on themselves? And when his mother learned everything, whose side would she stand on, the fragile harmony of the extended family, or the happiness her son had chosen? This trip back home may have ended one tense gathering, but has it truly closed the chapter of long-held prejudice, or merely opened the door to an even greater challenge waiting ahead? The journey of Tusan, Hai and Ivy continues. Not only a journey of love, but one of confronting the past, family ties, and the delicate boundary between tradition and personal choice. Stay tuned for the next episode as their story unfolds further, while the emotions of today continue to ripple quietly through relationships not yet fully settled.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến video về câu chuyện của Tiểu San và Hải nha mọi người. Thì ở tập trước thì Hải đã có một cái quyết định là sẽ đưa Tiểu San về quê để ăn Tết cùng với gia đình. Mới đầu thì mọi chuyện diễn ra khá là suôn sẻ khi bây giờ Hải là xe ô rồi nên là anh em họ hàng cũng rất yêu quý vì còn phải nhờ cậy nhiều.